Welcome, I'm Kele Le Roc, and this is the Empowerment Group Presents an interview with the one and only legend herself. It's Kele Le Roc. Ever experienced some lows?
You know, I did feel like they didn't understand me as an artist, and I thought I was always trying to fight to be my identity of who I was.
Kelly, this is a moment for me, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
When I think about some of the years past and the music that I listened to and still listen to an extent, more so back then, I would say probably 90 to 95% of the music I listened to were mixtapes. Mixtapes from the likes of your Dream Teams, your Tough Jams, Martin Lana, MJ Cole, Norris the Boss Windross,
He was a garage boy.
Jason K.
Does garage guy sound better?
The garage guys.
He was a garage guy.
Yes, the list is endless.
Yeah.
And of course, all of these DJs and mixtapes were synonymous for having a particular song on it that they couldn't get away from. My Love, of course, which was by yourself. So
thank you.
It's a privilege and an honor to be meeting with you today.
It's a privilege and an honor to be here.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's a little bit about my reflections. When you think about your career to date, are there any performances or any single performance that stands out to you, and why?
I would say probably one of my, I ended up actually doing it twice, but one of my biggest things was probably Top of the Pops. Because when you're a kid growing up, like that for you is like Top of the Pops,
Sure.
you know, I need to get, and I did Top of the Pops twice.
Wow.
And so yeah, that was definitely like a big tick on my list. And yeah, something that it's like a childhood dream come true. Do you know what I mean? I always wanted to do Wembley. I have done Wembley,
Okay.
but not just me by myself. So that was also a big tick off my list as well.
Stadium or arena?
It was the arena. Stadium's bigger, but I did it.
You did it. You can tick that one off the bucket
Yes,
list.
it's off the list.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But you didn't always pan out to be a singer, did you?
No, I did not. Well, I mean, I guess with what I initially wanted to do, singing did kind of come hand in hand with it. So I love musicals, and my mum sent me to dance school from the age of 3, and I literally I wanted to do like Broadway or like West End, like singing, all dancing, all performing. And then when I was 12, I had an operation on my knee, and I was just told I'd always have problems with it. So dancing probably wasn't something that I would be able to sustain. And I was like, okay, I'll be a singer. And I just kind of then started going to studio and just started writing my own music and kind of propelled myself solely into that thing. But I still danced till I was like in my early 20s, but I just never really pursued it after that as a career.
You still dance today?
Who doesn't dance?
I guess sometimes in life we can have a plan and things don't always go our way.
No, they don't.
And your life took a different course.
Yes.
I just wonder, do you think there's a lesson in that for us to take away?
I mean, I'm big on serendipity. I'm big on like gratitude. I'm big on like, you know, just kind of like, you know, when God closes a window, He opens a door, closes the door, opens a window, however you want to say it. So sometimes, you know, I feel like rejection is protection for whatever reason.
I love that.
And the path that it led me down served me well. Would the other path have served me better? Who knows? But I'm happy where I'm at right now. It's also when people, you know, talk about mistakes they've made and they're like, oh, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have done this and I wouldn't have done that. And I'm like, but actually, good or bad, every turn, you know, you made you the person you are. So unless you really don't like who you are, then you need counselling. But, you know, ultimately, you know, you're still here, you're still doing your thing. That's to be, you know, commended.
Absolutely, I agree. And if we fast forward a bit to today, of course, it's more than music that you do, isn't it? You're
Yes, I do more than music.
a businesswoman.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that? You're also
Yes, I don't know if I'm very good at it. But yeah.
and you're also a culinary enthusiast.
I am a culinary
Now, I
enthusiast.
just want to clarify because I feel like there are different enthusiasts when it comes to this. So I want to clarify, are you the type of person, when we talk about being a culinary enthusiast, who when you're going to the restaurant with your friends and they've laid out like 11 forks, you're the one that says start from the outside in or start from the inside out. I'm not
Yeah.
sure which way it is. Or are you more so, I like to cook and prepare meals and
I'm the
just
second
enjoy-
one.
You're the second
I'm
one.
the second one. So growing up, my mum was quite strict and very kind of like, you know, cooking, cleaning, that kind of thing. Taught me how to sew. Like all kind of, I'd say, kind of traditional feminine roles within the household, which I'm grateful for. But equally, my mum was very independent, so she did DIY and stuff like that. So I also got that from her. But it's funny because growing up, obviously having to cook, I used to hate it. I was like, oh, I've got to cook today. It's my cooking day. And then slowly what started to happen is I just fell in love with it. And then I think my mum's a great cook. And I think when you cook for people and they enjoy your cooking, there's a real sense of joy you get from that. And that's where it first sort of like came from. I just got a real joy from like cooking for people and them enjoying my cooking. And then it went from like, obviously my mum is Jamaican, so we cooked like more traditional West Indian food, that it went into other things. So if I go to an Indian restaurant and I like this particular dish, I'll learn how to make it authentically, or an Italian dish, or my favorite foods like Thai, Malaysian, I'll learn how to make things authentically. And that's where the cooking came about. And also I feel like if I've got like people coming round or I'm in a loving relationship, then that person becomes my muse, and then I just want to cook for them all the time. But I also do I love DIY, and I do epoxy resin. So I've started making epoxy resin pieces, so people commission pieces from me. It's a medium I really love to work with. I've got a catsuit brand that I just launched this year as well, because I wear a lot of catsuits when I'm performing. I used to make them myself, and people would always be like, where can I get your catsuit from? And I'd be like, oh, I made it. And they were like, oh, you need to do a range. I was like, okay. Took a few years, but I did that this year, doing a whole relaunch for next year. But yeah, my catsuit brand, Le Catsuit.
I love it.
You can get on my website, keleleroc.com. But yeah, there's a few little things that I enjoy doing aside from singing, yes.
And I have to ask you, do you have a go-to meal?
A go-to meal.
So
But
that's good.
on a like, if I'm just cooking for cook's sake, I love making laksas.
Okay.
It's curry coconut soup. It's like a Malaysian-y type meal dish. It's a Malaysian-y type deal.
Deal. I can tell you that you're making some of the film crew hungry, because before you came
Yeah.
and we were testing the mics and the sound,
Yeah.
a certain someone who I won't name was talking about all these different restaurants
Oh,
and
meals
meals that can be ate in the area. So
Oh,
I know
really?
that they're
In this
probably
area?
hungry now.
Because I'm going to go there afterwards.
And grab some lunch as well. Why not?
See, look, you just salivated. I saw you swallow.
I know, right? I'm ready for lunch already. So going back to music for a moment, you've been afforded an illustrious career that's taken you around the globe. I'm particularly interested to know about your trip to Mali, what that was about and what that involved and how that came about.
There's a youth organisation called Bigger Fish. I think he's passed on the reins now, but it was run by a very good friend of mine called Nisaki. At the time, actually, he wasn't my friend. We became friends off the back of this. And he's one of my best friends now, I would say. But he basically put together this thing where he had the idea to get some UK artists, like all from different backgrounds. So it was myself, Akala, Lady Likes, Ashley Thomas, Bashi back in the day, Dexplicit, Ignorance, and then he took us out to Mali, and then got some African artists from all over Africa, brought them to Mali also. Some of them playing traditional like African instruments with calabashes and stuff, amazing. And then we made an album. And there was also like a documentary that they filmed at the time, and then there was a book that was supposed to go into schools. To be honest, I don't think it ever all fully came to fruition, which is really unfortunate. But the album was finished, and funnily enough, I was speaking to Nee the other day, and I was like, put out that album. But what was mad, because we was all in Africa, we were really in our blackness and in our Africanness, and it transpired through on the music. And obviously, like I said, we had a lot of authentic traditional African instrumentation and like musicians playing on there as well. So we really did create some magic. So it would be a shame for the world not to hear it.
It's amazing. I mean, I don't know how many people are aware of, projects like that you've been involved in and the amazing work you've done there. I'm also not quite sure if people are aware that you also spent some time in LA.
I did.
With names that everyone would probably know.
Yeah.
Sounds like a career of highs. Ever experienced some lows?
Of course, I'm a human being.
What did that look like for
We
you?
all experience lows. I mean, I went through a period, so I was signed to one label and then licensed to a bigger label, which my label was Polydor. So the third single was about to come out. Someone at Radio 1 didn't like it. The album was just released. If anyone's familiar with my first album cover, it's me, but I'm covered in black grease paint and my hair slicked back. So nobody could actually recognize me. Everyone was like, who's that on your album cover? Like, it's me. So I was on every TV show going at the time. There were billboards everywhere. And I just think people couldn't actually make the correlation that I was that person in that poster. So in the first week of sales, we sold like 8,000, which was ridiculous because the last single had sold 250,000. And I was on Des O'Connor Tonight. I was literally on every TV show going. But subsequently, because of those little hiccups, I got taken off. I was supposed to go on tour with All Saints. I got taken off the tour. Someone at Radio 1 didn't like my third single. So I literally, like, my label that I was with that licensed me to my bigger label, they got into it. We ended up leaving them. But I was still at my other label, but we ended up leaving Polydor. And that kind of literally happened overnight. And at the time, I wasn't actually that bothered because I was just like, you know, I did feel like they didn't understand me as an artist. And I thought I was always trying to fight to be my identity of who I was. You know, like sometimes they put together groups or artists and they are pop stars. You know, they have a look, they have all their songs written for them, you know, they're dressed, they're you know, made to look a certain way. And that's fine. But I think because I've always been a really artistic person, I make my own clothes, you know, I do my own hair, my own makeup. I'm not saying that always has to be the case, but I feel like I really have an identity for myself, and I was never allowed to really express or explore that. I've always felt very constrained. So within those parameters, I wasn't that sad initially about leaving Polydor, but then I was still at my other label, which was First Avenue, and then it's almost like they didn't do anything with me. They just left me to my own devices. And there was no budget being put into my projects. And so I wanted to leave and they wouldn't let me leave.
They wouldn't let you
No,
leave?
because I'd originally signed for 10 albums. So they wouldn't let me leave. And for 3 years, I struggled to leave. And that was a really low point, I think, in my mental health. In general as well, I became very bitter, very sad, very angry. And I went through a bout of depression. Yeah. And that's when I started to have really bad panic and anxiety attacks, which I'd never had before. And I was like, what is this? And back then as well, I smoked weed. So that definitely exasperated it. But it was also something that's made me stop smoking, which was actually really good. Because I used to smoke for creative purposes. And I thought, oh, if I don't smoke, I can't be creative. But when I started getting these really bad anxiety attacks, I was like, nope, I'm going to stop smoking. Because I felt it was a catalyst. It was like, when I smoke, I get that feeling. I can't do that anymore. So I stopped that. But yeah, I went through a really dark time. And I think initially when I first started having panic attacks, I didn't know what it was. And so I thought I was going mad. And it's mad because I would have these thoughts. I'd be like, everyone thinks I'm normal. I'm not. I'm crazy. They just don't know I'm crazy. And what actually really saved me was my best friend. She's a barrister. I have to big her up, Lorianne Power. She's the 7th black silk in this country, female silk in this country. But yes, she had a panic attack. And she's very like, because she's a barrister, she's very like logical, like, right, I'm going straight to the doctors. What was this? This happened, that happened. And the doctor said to her, oh, you had a panic attack. And she said, oh, and he gave her this leaflet. And she said, oh, babe, this thing happened to me, I had a panic attack. And I read through the leaflet and I was like, oh my God, that's what happens to me. And that really clarified it for me. And I think once I knew what it was and I knew that there was help for it and I knew that everyone kind of gets it, it instantly kind of placated it a bit more for me. And then I was able to find ways to deal with it and I still have really bad panic attacks, but I think after she showed me that leaflet, it really kind of helped me kind of deal with it. And I sought help for it basically. But, you know, I feel like you're right. There's a real stigmatism about mental health in general, let alone within the black community. And I'm so glad that she didn't have that approach to it, and effectively, vicariously, I got diagnosed, and I was able to to get help for that.
I was gonna ask you just off the basis of what you shared. I could see that there was real hope in connection with a friend and being able to identify that you weren't the only one who was going through or who had experienced what you had experienced. You briefly touched on the fact that there is a stigma. It's a well-known stigma, especially in the black community, about getting help, whether that's speaking up to a friend or a family member or a colleague, or even going for counselling or therapy.
Yes.
Why do you think that might be? What do you think can be done to address that?
I think that, you know, as a nation, as a colour, as a race, black people are very proud, and I think we're traditionally known as being strong, and I think a lot of people really take that to heart, especially older people. I think it's really ingrained in them, and I think, you know, some of them weren't born here, so they came, you know, from their countries, and they struggled, you know, with a lot of. They just came and struggled with a lot of adversity, I think, and they carry that, and so I think that kind of has perpetuated, you know, maybe some mental illnesses as well in itself, but equally, you know, I think people just feel like, you know, like sometimes you get like older people within your family and they might have an illness, not mental, but like a knee issue. Like my granddad was like that. And he'd be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. And you're like, no, granddad, there's a hole in your leg. Go to the hospital. You know, I don't know where that mindset comes from, but they just have it. And it's, you know, it's actually, it does them a disservice, because I feel like if there's anything wrong with you in any capacity, in any place, you know, let alone your mind, because I think, you know, there's a saying, your mind is a terrible thing to waste, because I think that's when you feel the most alone, because it's something that happens internally. And it's something, you know, unless you do go and seek help, you don't realise it's actually very commonplace. And it might be something really simple. Like some people of colour suffer from mental illness because they have vitamin D deficiencies, you know, and they don't know this and they're suffering in silence. So I think knowledge is the key to kind of, you know, helping with that stigmatism about it all.
Yeah.
And just raising awareness that people can get help. I mean, the one thing I would say about young people is the younger people, you know, they're more inclined to, you know, use the internet, but to go out there and seek answers and seek help. And I think maybe within kind of like community centres and just us, you know, speaking up to our elders and being like, you know, that you can go here for this or go here for that, and just keeping an eye on them, you know, because it is important. And it's really scary for someone that suffered mental illness. It's bloody scary, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially to go through that alone, let alone knowing there's help out there.
Absolutely. Know? And I think, I know that that's the work that we're working to eradicate here at the Empowerment Group and that mind as well. And we're glad that we're able to have conversations like this with individuals like yourself who are, you know, open to talking about some of the challenges that we face in the black community with mental health. And I just wonder if there's anything specifically or anything else that comes to mind that you would say to someone who might be listening to this and is thinking, I've heard about counselling, I've heard about therapy, but I'm a little bit reluctant, I'm a little bit unsure. Any words of advice to them?
You know, so I've had life coaching, I've had counselling. Best thing I ever did for myself, best thing I ever did for my mental health, best thing I ever did for my overall happiness. And I think that is the most important thing. You know, people say, oh, I want to be rich, I want to have this, I want to have that. And ultimately, it doesn't mean anything if you're not happy within, if you don't love yourself within. So I would say everyone should have counselling anyway.
And that's what makes you a hard rock and a funky place?
Basically, yeah.
For those of you that don't know, that's how we got the name.
How I got my name, Kele Le Roc, yes. So when I was about 15, my dad took me to work with these guys called Best Kept Secret. So my dad was really good friends with Mikey Craig from Culture Club, and his younger brother and some of his friends had started like doing music, like production. And they were looking for vocalists, and my dad was like, oh, my daughter sings, and my dad took me to them. So they were like the first people that kind of really understood the kind of vocalist I wanted to be. I was highly influenced by Janet Jackson, Mary J. Blige, huge Prince fan. And that's a Prince song, actually, Rock Hard in a Funky Place. And they really, like, I basically they are the people that molded me into Kele Le Roc, 100%. I'm not saying that I didn't have a part in it, but back in the day, people used to invest in artists and invest in kind of artist development. They developed me 100%. And I always will love and cherish them for that. And Daddy Didge, who's the digital engineer, he named me Kele Le Roc. So that's why I'm Kele Le Roc.
What's the one question I haven't asked you today that you would like to ask and answer?
I would like to kind of talk about my personal experience with Mind as a charity, and obviously why it's so important what you're doing. So a particular family member of mine suffered a bout of mental illness that lasted about 3 years, and in this time they wouldn't leave the house, and they weren't getting any help because they hadn't been diagnosed. And they couldn't get diagnosed because they weren't registered with a doctor because they'd previously been out of the country for a long time. And I thought, who could help? And I contacted Mind, and they were so kind of just full on, so helpful, and literally helped this person. They managed to get a doctor, because no doctor will do a house visit unless you're registered. And you can't get registered unless you go to the doctors. Right. So they literally, were really orchestrative in getting a doctor that would, overgo those bylaws, and went to see this person, got them registered, diagnosed them. So then they were able to start getting financial help and counselling and stuff. And it was really pivotal in this person's kind of just to come out of that bad place. And I'm forever grateful to Mind for that. This person was a family member, so yes, they were a person of colour, and yes, they felt like there's nothing wrong with me, I'll ride it through, and that's why the work you do is so important, and again, I thank you for doing it, and just raising awareness, because that's all it is really. I think everything really is about awareness. I think there are so many things that are available to people, and if you just don't know about it, how are you going to know,
Absolutely.
I had a panic attack. I didn't know what it was. Someone made me aware of what it was, and then I knew what it was. And I think sometimes people are afraid, because I was afraid. I was afraid to know the truth. I was like, what is wrong with me? Something's seriously wrong with me. It wasn't serious at all. But awareness, made me privy to that. I can get help. There are coping mechanisms. I meditate now. And I think, like I said, counselling really helped me. Life coaching really helped me in just being an overall happier person, so I don't suffer so much from my anxiety. And I'm going to do a shameless plug, my catsuit line. It's on my website, KeleLeRoc.com. And I'm in a new TV show. It's called No Housewives in the South, so I want to give that a plug as well.
So we look out for that.
Yeah, it's out now. It's on YouTube. If you put in No Housewives, come straight up. Yeah.
Kele Le Roc.
It's a little bit more of my journey on there, so you can see what's going on for Kele right now.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and of course, stay posted for more.